Ever since Mikel Arteta joined Arsenal in December of 2019, there's been a lot of talk about his time as manager, both good and bad. Social media is filled with praise and criticism on a weekly basis, but what are the actual facts behind the tweets and the TikToks? In today's video, I'm going to be diving into the claims to see whether they are true or false. Number 1. How much has Mikel Arteta spent in his time at Arsenal, and how does it compare to other Premier League teams? To answer this question, I had to go onto Transfermarkt and have a look. As you can see right below my camera here, he's purchased 34 players at a total of 792 million euros, which when converted into pounds is £664.57. That's across 11 transfer windows, which is 5.5 seasons, which works out at just under 24 million per player. This next page here is sorted by expenditure of the last 5 seasons. So from the 19-20 season to the 24-25. Now Arsenal's looks a little bit different by 8 million, and that's because Pablo Mari was Arteta's first signing, and that was a loan fee of 8 million. He didn't sign anyone else for any money until the end of that first season. So this screen here is as accurate as I could get it, but just add on 8 million if you really want to. So Arsenal sit in 5th position behind Chelsea, Man City, Man United and Tottenham, just above Aston Villa, West Ham and Newcastle United. Now, because we have to be fair and we're looking at facts, I'm going to sort it by net spend. And if you do sort it by net spend, it then looks like this. Chelsea at the top, Man United 2nd, Tottenham 3rd and Arsenal 4th. So on both those lists, Arsenal have not been inside the top 3 teams. And 2 of those teams are in 15th and 17th position. One of them has just got Champions League on the final day, and Man City, who were in the other list, are obviously very, very good. It's Man City. Now, if you look at the income column, Arsenal have been very bad at selling over the last couple of seasons, notoriously bad. But there's also context around that as well. And that leads me to the next screen, which is the change in each club's market value and sellable assets between when Arteta took over to current day. Now, Man City at the top, as you would expect. But if you look in second, Arsenal are there. But if you look at the value, December 15th, less than a week before Arteta joined the club, the squad was worth 677 million euros. So let's sort by that then. And when we do, Arsenal are in 6th position. So when Mikel Arteta took over, Arsenal was 6th in the overall market value of their club. In that time, Man City, who were already in front, have gone up by less than 1%, 0.7. They didn't really need to improve, so that's absolutely fine. Liverpool have gone down 15.8%, and that's because when they started this, they had really young players, and now they're a bit older, and naturally, they lose some value. Either way, still very, very good. Tottenham in this time had a team worth 959 million euros, nearly 300 million euros more than Arsenal, because Pochettino did a fantastic job. Now they're down to 836 million euros, which is a drop by nearly 13%. Chelsea have gone up 9.4%. They've spent a lot of money. They've gone down the youth route, so obviously it's going to be in a plus. And Man United have spent a lot, but they've not performed well on the pitch for a long time now, and it's gone down by 6.5%. Now, all those values in the top 5 clubs there are between minus 15% and plus 10%, which is probably usually what you'd expect from big clubs because they're already valued very high, so they don't change too much. But if you look down there in 6th position, there's Arsenal. Now, as we mentioned previously, they were worth 677 million euros when Arteta joined, and now they're a massive 1.13 billion at a rise of 66.3%. These numbers are since Arteta joined the club. As you can see, even before we talk about on the pitch situations, off the pitch, sellable assets and market value of the club and the players, it's gone up by 2/3, which when you look at the squad when he took over, is fantastic. It was an aging team on high contracts with attitude problems. But if we go back to expenditure, Arsenal in 5th position, there's 3 teams above them that have spent more money and are currently worse than them. Man City, you could argue, are better or worse, but it's negligible. It's very, very close. But Man City were already in a fantastic position 5 years ago. So yes, he spent a lot of money, but everyone has as well. Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp, also fantastic. Very good output for what they actually did spend. But why I'm addressing this is because I'm seeing a lot of people saying he's spending so much money, but Arsenal aren't doing anything. But I would argue, aside from Liverpool and Man City, every single club in England would like to be where Arsenal are. So in that 5-year period, it's not just about money spent, because there's teams that are doing worse currently, have spent more money. It's how efficient he's been with the money. Number 2. Mikel Arteta hasn't won enough trophies. In 5 full seasons, he has 1 FA Cup and 2 Community Shields. That in itself is not good enough, and he said that himself many times. The FA Cup that he did win in his first season was with the worst team he had at any point ever. So if he managed to win a trophy with that team, there's absolutely no reason why he can't do it again with a better team. And he's come very close to doing so. Second 3 times in a row, very close twice, and this season got to a Champions League semi-final. Now, yes, that's falling short, but I do also think that there isn't enough context around the whole situation. For example, Jurgen Klopp, one of the best ever Premier League managers, in 9 years at Liverpool, only won 1 Premier League trophy. He came second with 97 points to the same City side that denied Arsenal twice. Any other time, Jurgen Klopp would have had at least 1 more. Sometimes you lose by very tight margins. Liverpool under Klopp won 1 Champions League and lost in 2 finals. The win being against Spurs and 2 losses coming against the Real Madrid juggernaut led by Zinedine Zidane. Tottenham were very good under Pochettino, but that is a very favourable draw to get them in a Champions League final, rather than Real Madrid, who had Courtois playing out of his skin. Like I say, context is needed. That Liverpool team on their day could have beaten anyone in the world, but because this sport we love is cruel, they didn't. In another universe, Jurgen Klopp is sat there with 3 Champions League medals and 3 Premier League medals, which would be no less than he deserved. He just unfortunately had the very bad luck of running into prime Man City domestically and prime Real Madrid in Europe. Back to Arteta and Arsenal and the FA Cup that they did win in the 2019-20 season, the team he had that day is nowhere near as good as the team he has now. So, by some very simple logic, if he did it then, there is 0 reason why he couldn't do it now. They did beat Man City 2-0 in the semi-finals and a Chelsea team in the final who would win the Champions League the season after. So, to summarise, yes, not enough trophies, 100%, and sometimes they haven't got over the line when they probably should. But it's very close, and just a few fine margins either way, they could easily have at least 1 Premier League title. The Champions League is a different beast, and this season, the semi-final exit was only the 2nd season that they've been back in the competition. So to expect him to win that at the 2nd attempt is slightly unrealistic. But I do agree with the consensus that if this carries on for the next 2 or 3 seasons, and he still hasn't won a Premier League trophy or any major trophy, then questions definitely have to start being asked seriously. Because you can have context over the space of 4 to 5 years, but when it gets to close to a decade, questions need to start being answered. 2025-26 season is not make or break for Arteta and Arsenal's project, but it does feel like a very significant one. If they fail again, the spotlight is going to be brighter and pressure is going to be greater. Number 3. Arsenal's football is more boring to watch now than a few seasons ago. In the 2022-23 season, when Arsenal went for their first title challenge, they got plaudits with their free-flowing football, with Zinchenko inverting, Xhaka reborn in the left centre midfield role, Gabriel Jesus coming deep, and Ben White overlapping Bukayo Saka to devastating effect down that right-hand side. Now, I think there's 2 reasons behind why that was the case then, and now it's totally different. The first one being that they were taking teams by surprise, because the season before that, in 21-22, Arsenal came 5th and just missed out on 4th spot to local rival Spurs. So teams were playing them as if they were just a Champions League challenger rather than a title challenger. So as Arsenal started to put wins together and rack up points and show that they are a very good team, other teams started to realise that actually they were really good and were sitting further and further back, meaning Arteta and Arsenal had to adapt. As of now, it might not look as good on the eye, but it is more effective and aims to control the majority of areas on the pitch, which in turn gives more consistent points. The season after they had changed their style to adapt, they scored more goals than the 22-23 season that looked better on the eye and also conceded less goals. The season just gone was disappointing and there's too many draws, but a lot of big players have been injured for large chunks of the season, mainly not having a number 9 for 3 to 4 months. There were some very strange decisions by officials at the start of the season. If next season, in 25-26, they have a lower points tally again, but without the injuries and other things happening, then I think it's a cause for concern. To highlight this point, this is from a fantastic website called Mark Stats. I'll put the link down below, but it's a fantastic website by a guy that clearly knows his stuff. What I'm going to look at first is the season 2023-24. So not the one just gone, this season just gone, but the season just before that, when Arsenal ran City pretty close. So what I've done is I've sorted it by defensive line, and as you can see, Man City and Arsenal, unsurprisingly probably for most people, are at the top. Man City is slightly higher than Arsenal's. It is quite a bit much higher than the next place, which is Liverpool in 3rd. So It's a conscious decision from Arteta that he also wants his defensive line to be higher, and it makes sense. It's more effective. Pep Guardiola does the same thing, that if you squeeze other teams efficiently and effectively into their own half, not only is it harder for them to play out, they've got a smaller space to play into, and also you can get closer to their team once you've lost the ball, which means you can win it back and you've got less running to do when closing the ball down. If we have a look at the line next to that, which is opposition defensive line, Arsenal face the second lowest defensive lines, which makes sense. And Man City, they're facing the lowest defensive lines because they've got the best team. In the 2023-24 season, they had the best team. But Arsenal in second there, that suggests that teams are now taking them more seriously. The season before that, in 2022-23, you actually can't see the opposition defensive line. So I'm guessing Mark started putting this into his stats in 2023-24, which is slightly annoying for me on this video because I can't really prove the defensive line that we played against in 2022-23. I'm guessing you're sort of just going to have to watch matches back if you're really bothered, but Arsenal did face higher defensive lines in this season because it was the season just after we finished 5th in 21-22. If we look at the season just gone, it's 51.34. Arsenal now have the highest defensive line. And if we go to defensive lines, they still have the second deepest. They play against the second deepest defensive lines. Man City still at the top. That's probably the fear factor still that Man City have got with their players like Haaland. As a defender, you're against Haaland with his pace, power and his intelligence. You are probably thinking in the back of your mind, yes, Man City might not be as good, but if I push up half a yard too high, he's gone. Whereas with Kai Havertz or Marino, whoever's playing up front for Arsenal, they don't make as many runs in behind, which is the first problem I'm going to allude to in a second. I think that's a problem that Arsenal do definitely have. Not enough runners in behind. And as you can see, if you sort by XGA, which is expected goals against, Arsenal still at the lowest, despite having, by everyone's metric, a really bad season. By my metric, someone that likes to look at things objectively and factually and just not really too much emotion in it, because I think there's a lot of emotion on social media. I like to look at the facts and like to believe what I'm seeing with my eyes. And Arsenal still have the best defence, in my opinion. They do. I think that definitely comes at a cost in attack, as you can see. But if you look at XG, yes, Liverpool are miles in front because they've been the best team this season by a distance, but they still have the highest XG. And the X-goal differential, which means obviously between both, they are second. Liverpool, very impressive there with 1.19. So on average, every game, they have a higher XG than the other team by 1.19. That's really impressive. It's why they've won the title. After Arsenal, it drops off quite heavily to Man City. So yes, people this season are going to see Arsenal not win a trophy. And they're going to think, oh, they've had a really bad season. They've had a lot of injuries. But their underlying stats are still very, very good. Now, yes, they've had a few bad luck. Liverpool being really good. Salah posted a ridiculous season. Slot coming in, and I think there's a little bit of people didn't know how to play a slot team yet. I think next season will be very much of a test. I remember Sir Alex Ferguson saying ages ago, I'm talking a long time ago now, that it's not the first title that's the hardest to win, it's to retain it. Once teams sort of figure out how you like to play. But Arteta and Arsenal keep posting very good stats despite that happening. The Zubimendi signing this season, I think that will change Arsenal's style yet again in the 25-26 season. And the reason for that, and I've watched a few clips of Zubimendi. Now, I know compilations aren't something you should probably watch that much because it shows you all the good bits and not necessarily the bad bits. But what I did pick up from that, again, being someone that's looking at it objectively, is he can play as, I'm going to use the word that not everyone likes, a pivot, right? It's just basically a fancy new word in football for someone that can sit at the base of a midfield and he doesn't need anyone on the side of him. A single pivot, basically. It's not a double pivot, it's a single pivot. And he's basically someone that can sit there. He can receive off the back line. He's very press resistant. He's got very good first touch. He's very intelligent. He knows when to drag a player in so defenders can go behind him. And he knows when to receive the ball. But also, on top of that, the most exciting thing for me personally as an Arsenal fan about the Zubimendi signing is the fact that he's very, very adept and also not scared to play progressive passes through the line, which I think will unlock a lot of central attacking threat in Arsenal's matches. I do agree that the last 2 seasons, Arsenal's style of football has been more boring than the 2022-23 season. But I think it's a mixture of personnel. I think it's a mixture of the fact that teams have sort of adapted, so he had to change it slightly. And also Arteta's need for ultimate control like Guardiola does. In Arsenal's fantastic season last season, when they just missed out on the title against Man City. Yes, again, they were more boring, but they're more effective. So as a fan, I guess what you've got to ask yourself is, do you want to be really, really entertaining and maybe drop more points and probably not win as many titles? I'm looking at Jurgen Klopp there just because his style of football was probably one of the best I've seen in the Premier League, but he couldn't get the marginal gains needed over Pep Guardiola enough. Now, you can say that's spending and whatnot, and it probably is a little bit of that as well, but Guardiola's style, as boring as it was compared to Klopp's, it won more titles. So you've got to ask yourself what you want, and I know what I want, especially as an Arsenal fan of the last however many decades. I want titles. And number 4, Arteta doesn't give any chances to young players. By young players, what I mean is Ethan Nwaneri. On social media this season, there's been a lot of stick towards Arteta about not playing Ethan Nwaneri enough, especially when Ødegaard's forms dipped and also when Saka was injured, which he did get used, but not as much in the second half of the season. And I think there's a reason for that. Let me show you. This season, Ethan Nwaneri has played 37 games, clocking 1,378 minutes. The only players from the top 6 aged 21 or under with more minutes were Miles Lewis-Skelly, who we'll come on to in a second, Lewis Hall, Rico Lewis, and Connor Bradley. And those 3 players at the end, Lewis Hall, Rico Lewis, and Connor Bradley, are all significantly older than Ethan Nwaneri, who's only just turned 18 last month. And only 4 players have played more minutes at the age of 21 or under. We're not talking 19 or under, or 18 or under, which is his age group. We're talking 21 and under, which, like the tweet says, is incredible trust from Arteta. When Pedri was playing so many games for Barcelona and Spain, and now Lamine Yamal is, both fantastic players, both players that can definitely do all those games and perform well. But what I do see when that happens is a lot of people on social media saying that managers are ruining them and playing them into the ground. So I don't think managers can win when it comes to handling young players. So the original point was that Arteta doesn't really trust young players. So we're going to go to the second player on that list, which is Miles Lewis-Skelly. He's 18 years old, nearly 19 in September. So he's a year older than Ethan Nwaneri. And he's also on that list. So Arteta, not only does he play young players, he has got 2 players, the youngest 2 players, on a short list of 5 that have played the most minutes in the Premier League this season. And then on top of that, it is much easier to play young players if you're in middle of the table, at the top of the league, where margins are so tight. It's much more of a risk to throw young players in. But Arteta has shown time and time again that if you're good enough, you will play. And the last thing on this point from me as well is the fact that Arteta and his staff at Arsenal know exactly how much load and how many matches to put into these players. We've just got to trust them, and we've got 2 fantastic players on our hands who hopefully will get better and better each season. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video, guys. If you like that and you want to watch more football content, please leave a like on the video to tell YouTube that you like it. Hopefully you thought what I said was fair and reasoned. If you didn't, fair enough, leave it in the comments. Football is all about opinions. But hit subscribe on the channel, and I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.